So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. You get back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, January 17th. Hopefully everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Monday, January 17th here today. Coming off another big weekend in sports. We had the big, very fun, exciting wild card weekend, which wraps up tonight with the first time, I believe, you have the Monday night wild card game tonight versus the Rams and the Cardinals. Will wrap up what they are calling Super Wild Card Weekend, so that's super exciting. I'm pumped up for tonight's game. I'm excited for it. I'm ready for it. So a lot went down over the weekend and a lot to get to today in the podcast. Man, that was great. I mean, just an excellent weekend of football and stuff like that. I mean, I know the games weren't spectacular. The Chiefs-Steelers game was a blowout. The Buccaneers-Eagles game was a blowout. The the Bills-Patriots game was a blowout. And, you know, you had the Raiders game, which was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was a solid game. Niners-Cowboys game was the best game of the weekend. No matter what you could say anything you want, definitely the best game of the weekend. And you got to hope that tonight is an even better game between the Chiefs and, between the Rams and the Cardinals. So you got to hope that tonight's an even better game. You got to hope that, tonight you get a game that comes down to the final couple minutes like the Niners and Cowboys game did. And, if you're Rams and Cardinals fans, you got to hope that the game does not come down to, for your team, a quarterback run play with 14 seconds left and not getting the spike off in time to end the game. And, I mean, just a completely ridiculous play call, terrible play call, awful play call. What were the Cowboys doing? I do not know. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit. To get to some of the local New York sports teams over the weekend, the Nets were able to get the win Saturday night against the Pelicans. So, the big news is Kevin Durant getting the injury. We'll get to that, out 4 to 6 weeks. It could be worse. I'm not going to be a negative Nancy about it. I'm not going to be negative about it. It could have been worse. It could have been much worse. I don't even want to say what it could have been because you don't want to turn it into that, but it could have been a tear. It could have been a season, anything. It's only going to be out he's only going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, so it's going to be something where he does come back. But this should be a kind of an eye-opener for the Brooklyn Nets that they need to get something going in terms of making a trade, signing somebody. This needs to be an eye-opener. I understand they're on the road today for an afternoon game against the Cavs. We'll get to that in a little bit. An afternoon game on MLK Day, right? I get that. I understand all that, and they got an away game, and Kyrie Irving's going to play, and they have a couple road games coming up. I get that. I believe 11 of their next 14 games, I think, are on the road. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's something like that or somewhere in that vicinity. We got a lot of road games, a few home games, and a whole lot of road games coming up within this next 10-15 game span. So, you do have Kyrie in those games. You'll have James Harden, but the Nets need to do something with this roster because let's just say KD is out for 6 weeks. Let's say it's the worst 6 weeks. It's the longest possible he could be out, right? Let's say it's about a month and a half, which is the longest. 6 weeks right now is the longest he could be out. It's an MCL strain, so it's similar to what, Wilson had. Nets need to then decide, make a move, especially if we're losing or we're not playing well, because you're going to dig yourself into a deeper hole. Forget about winning the Eastern Conference. Forget about getting home court advantage. Now you're going to be digging yourself a hole, and maybe late in the season, if you go through a terrible stretch here, you might find yourself trying to fight for a playoff spot. That can't happen. So we'll get to more of that in the second topic. But KD injured, he's out. So you got to hope he's back sooner rather than later because we all know he is the best player on the team, best player I think in the world. And without him, it's a completely different basketball team. And it's not going to look good. So you got to hope he's get back, and you got to hope for the meantime, guys like Patty Mills, Harden, guys like that really step up, really play big. And it is nice that Kyrie Irving is playing road games because, look, if it wasn't if Kyrie Irving wasn't playing road games, I'd be really concerned with these stretch of games. So we'll get to that. We'll get to the Knicks as well. They got a day game today as well against the Hornets at the Garden. So some daytime basketball, which is always fun to watch. So Knicks, you got the Knicks on, then you got the Nets on shortly after that, 3 Eastern in Cleveland. Rangers got the win on Saturday night in Philly. I was actually at the game, had a great time. Very exciting game. Was an awesome game. 2-1. They were down 2-1. Allowed the goal in the third period. Rangers come back. Hedl, Kreider with the 2 big goals late in the third, and closed it out. Got the 3-2 victory. So it was a super exciting. It's really exciting time at the game. Was awesome to see. Great to see the Rangers in person. Love going to the game. So that was a lot of fun and a big win for the New York Rangers. And they have a few days off here. Day off yesterday. Got a day off today. Got a day off tomorrow before they start. Before they are back home at the Garden Wednesday night against the Maple Leafs, another very solid team. So Kentucky also got a big win over the weekend as well. A huge win against Tennessee. And I mean, not even just a huge win in terms of magnitude, but score-wise. 107 points scored. Ty Washington with a huge game. Oscar Tshiebwe getting to the boards and getting big rebounds again. Just all around another excellent performance from Kentucky. And you got to keep on stacking these wins. You have a big game coming up against Texas A&M on the road. Then you head to the road next weekend, or this upcoming weekend against Auburn, which you can make the argument right now is going to be the biggest game coming up this season. So Kentucky with a big win and a lot of big games coming up. All right, so let's get to the topic for today's podcast. A lot to get to on this Monday BSN Network podcast coming out of the first round of Wild Card Weekend. We'll get to the NFL recap all the games, and get you ready for tonight's Monday night game against with the Rams against the Cardinals. So we had 5 games over the weekend. Obviously 5 games stretched across Saturday and Sunday, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. So those were all fun, really fun to watch. So we'll get to the game tonight. We'll talk about it, give you my preview, and of course give you my game pick for tonight's game between the Rams and the Cardinals. And then we'll get to Kevin Durant's injury. We will get to the Nets, Kevin Durant's injury, what it means for the Nets, what the Nets need to do, and ultimately, do the Nets need to make a trade? Do the Nets need to go out and sign somebody? Do they need to make a splash? Do they not kind of need to do what the Knicks did? Bring in a guy to create a spark while Kevin Durant's gone. We'll get into it, talk about it, and get to the injury. And then we'll finish off the podcast with the usual New York sports update. Get you ready for the Nets and Knicks today. And as well as the Nets and Knicks today, as well as the Islanders later on. They will be facing Philly at home later on tonight. So that should be good there. Alrighty, a lot to get to. Recapping NFL. Get into Kevin Durant. Finishing off with the New York Sports Update. With all that being said, this is the BSN Network podcast, and let's get right into it. Alrighty, so if you saw me just typing stuff on my phone, it was because I actually forgot to put in my game pick record. So I forgot to put in my game pick record. I know I usually always start with it, but it was easy since there was only 5 games. I got 4 of them right. I only got 1 wrong. So right now I am 4-1 on Wild Card Weekend. I got 4 of the 5 picks correct, so I'm 175 and 102 going into tonight's game. So I got every single pick right except the 49ers and the Cowboys. So it was kind of a, I guess you can kind of say the weekend was relatively predictable just because of the fact that, I guess you could say the weekend was pretty predictable. With the games coming, there was a lot of really good games. There was a lot of possibilities for upsets, but everything that should have happened. Bills won, Buccaneers won, Chiefs won, and the Bengals won. And tonight we'll see if the Rams win because they're the favorites. So I know I picked all the favorites, and 4 of the 5, it worked out for me. The Niners won, which I did say. I said it was going to be a close game. I said it was going to come down to a Greg Zuerlein winning field goal, which was not true. It almost did. It almost came down to a Greg Zuerlein winning extra point, which would have been interesting because he's missed a lot of those this year. But I went 4-1, so I'm 175 and 102 overall now. And tonight, if I pick tonight's game correct, I'll be 5-1 on Wild Card Weekend, which I'd be pretty stoked about because 5-1 for all the craziest that could go on in the playoffs. 5-1 to start off the playoffs is not bad for your record at the game pick. So that's my record. I know, some of you might want to hear it, some of you might not, but that's the updated record, 175 and 102. So hoping that tonight's pick goes the way the Saturday and Sunday picks went, and that is another successful pick tonight. Crazy weekend, a wild weekend of football. And I mean, I guess some of the games were predictable. I think we all expected the Buccaneers to beat the Eagles. I expected to be a little closer. I thought the Eagles were actually going to bring up a fight, but they didn't. They played like garbage. They played terrible. Jalen Hurts looked bad. They just looked like they did not. They just looked like the worst team, and there's no other way to put it. The Buccaneers are just more talented than the Eagles. There's no other way to put it. Same thing with the Chiefs Steelers. That game started like, watch out, Steelers might win. They got off to an early lead. They got off 7-0. T.J. Watt got the touchdown, and it was like, okay, what's happening here? Are the Chiefs going to get caught? Looking ahead, are they going to get caught? Here, and is this Big Ben story going to go live on another day? And that simply was not the case. Chiefs started to really lay the hammer down. After the 7 points, they allowed 21 points unanswered to go into the third, and then the Chiefs just kept on pouring it on, adding another 21 points in the second half, 14 in the third. 7 more in the fourth quarter, and they won 42-21. So that was your Sunday night game. You also had the Buccaneers and Eagles. But anyway, let's get, those are just some of the games. They are predictable ones. Bills crushed the Patriots as well. But let's get to some of these other games here. Like I said, I'll get to each one, get to the, Steelers and Chiefs as well. But some of these other games that, went on were the Bengals and the Raiders. And this was a very, 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 very interesting game in many ways. I think we all expected going into the Bengals to win. So, this was a game, I think, going into it. Raiders obviously took the loss. Bengals got the win 26-19. This was a game going into it where, there was kind of some people, I think, that thought, there was a possibility of the, Bengals winning. I think also people thought the Raiders had a good chance of winning. I did predict the Bengals to win this game. They won 26-19. And look, right, the Bengals, I think, and I want to make this clear right now. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to tell you this, because, I usually don't make my Super Bowl predictions. Like, I'm not a guy to go in the beginning of the season and say this team's going to win a Super Bowl. I'm also not the guy to go into the playoffs and say this team's winning it, no doubt about it. Because I don't like to do that. Because all the crazies that came on, I just don't like to predict that. I just like to see how things play out, and I'll predict who I think is going to win the Super Bowl when the matchup's set up. That's kind of just the person I am. But I'm going to kind of break my own rule here. I'm going to tell you this. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to get to the Super Bowl. And you can call me crazy. You could say, oh, what are you talking about? I think after watching that game, which they did not even play their best, there was definitely some moments where, they did let the Raiders kind of creep back into the game, after having it start off, 13-3, they let them creep back into it. They let them, make it a one-possession game, 23-17, and 26, 26, all that stuff. So all that craziness that went on, they did, let them creep back into a little bit and, let the Raiders hang around. And I understand the whole ref situation was kind of crazy. But the one thing I will say is, coming out of the AFC, which is going to be a lot of fun, that if it does come down to a Bills-Bengals AFC Championship game, which very well could be. Bengals will head to Tennessee this weekend. Bills will head to Kansas City, or Bills will head to Kansas City. So if the Bills and the Bengals win, you're talking about an AFC Championship game between Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, two high-powered offenses. That would be a ton of fun. So I'm rooting for that. I want that to happen. I think there's a good chance it does happen. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. After watching the Bengals, after seeing what this team has done all throughout the year and into the game on Saturday, I think the Bengals get to the Super Bowl. Right now, I do. Now, could things change come, if they get to the AFC Championship game? Could things change? Possibly. If the Bills go into Kansas City and actually dominate them 35-3, and maybe the Bengals win 10-3 and they kind of look, concerned, it looks a little concerning, I might change my view. But right now, Bengals are my pick to go all the way. Not saying they're going to win it, but that's my pick. Joe Burrow, I just don't know who can really stop Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, there are just so many threats on offense. CJ Uzoma got in the game, got some action. There's so many things about this team to like. You got a good running game. You have 3 really good receivers. You have, it looks like you got your franchise quarterback. I think we all know Burrow's going to be the guy in Cincinnati for a long time. Like, they have all the pieces. It's just a matter of executing and going out there and playing to the best of their ability. And they showed it on Sunday. They played great. They looked really good. And right now, I think the Bengals are the team to beat in the AFC. And I can make the argument they're one of the best teams right now in all of the NFL playoffs, because what I saw Sunday and what we continue to see every week is a team that is just looks too good to be beat. And they continue to prove that week in and week out. And they proved that on Sunday. And for the Raiders, they go into an offseason with some questions. They go into an offseason with what's gonna happen with Derek Carr, what's gonna happen with their head coach, right? They do plan on moving on from Rich Bisaccia, and they're gonna open up the expectations that Rich Bisaccia will not return as head coach. But there's been some rumors about what's gonna go on with Derek Carr and what's gonna go on with him, and who, if they hire a new coach and he wants to start things over, like what's gonna happen. A lot of questions for the Raiders. But I will tell you one thing about this Raiders team. Through all of the adversity that they went through this season, between Gruden and you had Henry Ruggs, and you had players left and right, you had a lot of just internal issues with the Raiders. They were able to stick through it. They won 4 straight games to end the year, including some thrilling victories like the game winner over the Browns, the game winner against the Chargers, beat some really good teams on the road. They took care at home against the Chargers for last week. A lot they went through. Yes, they lost, but definitely a very tough and resilient Raiders team that we saw throughout this season. So they took the loss. Bengals move on, but Raiders definitely are a team to watch next season if they can get a true head coach and a true guy that's really going to take that team and really perform it to the next level, because they looked good under really wild circumstances. Just imagine if they can get a really set culture there, they could be much better. But Bengals move on. They win 26-19. Bills hammered the Patriots 47-17. I mean, just hammered them. This game is over. I could say this game was over. Technically, the game was over right as Dawson Knox caught the first touchdown pass, but this game was over for a long time. I mean, Bills start off with the 14-0 lead. They continue to dominate. They score 13 more in the second quarter. Patriots add on a little dinky field goal. I know the extra point, I believe, was blocked, but look, it was like 27-3 going into the second half. This game was over by halftime. And I mean, the Patriots just looked lost. And this is the big thing with the Patriots going into the offseason. Look, this is the big thing with the Patriots going into the offseason is, can you bring in the guys? Can you get this roster to where they are now to that next level to beat Buffalo? And through all of these years, which is just great to hear, all of these years we were talking about, can the AFC East, can there be a roster that will be able to take down New England? Now we have a roster that can take down New England. That's the Bills. Beat them once in the regular season and beat them obviously on Saturday night in the wild card round. So we have that team now. Now for the Patriots, it's all about, can they get a roster? Not the one they used to have with Tom Brady and stuff, right? That's not gonna. Very rarely you're gonna see another team that dominant. But can they get a roster? Can they get this roster to the next level? Because that's going to be the big thing going to the offseason. Bill Belichick and his staff need to get this roster to where they can beat Buffalo. So next year, if you're going into a game in Buffalo and you're a wild card team, it's not 47-17. Instead, maybe it's a 23-20 victory and New England's moving on to the second round, because to the divisional round. Because the simplest way to put it, I could go in many ways with this. I could say, the Patriots are overrated. I could say Mac Jones is not, the guy. I could go in so many different ways. I don't agree with those takes. The simple take for this one is the Patriots need to go into this offseason. They're not there yet. They are not at the level yet of beating the Buffalo Bills. They are not at the level yet, again, of taking down the AFC East and winning it. They're not there yet. They need to address that in the offseason. And for the Bills, they're moving on to the next round, and they get a matchup against a Kansas City Chiefs team that I did not really like what I saw in the first half, but Mahomes, they started to settle down. He threw 5 touchdowns. They looked like the Kansas City Chiefs we all expected to see at the beginning of the season by dominating the Steelers. But Bills, another team. Bills, Bengals, I think have the 2 best chances to come out of the AFCs. If you had to ask me right now, pick 2 teams from each conference. NFC I'm not going to, because it's the Rams and the Cardinals, because you got to figure out tonight's game, right? Depending on tonight's game, it could be a difference. But so right now in the AFC, I think the two best teams in the divisional round are the Bengals and the Bills. I think the Bills can beat the Titans. I think the Bengals can beat the Titans. I also think the Bills can beat the Chiefs, and we've seen the Bengals beat the Chiefs already. So if you had to ask me, I think the Bills and the Bengals are the two best teams in the AFC, and they're the two teams to beat right now. And the Bills showed that on Saturday night, dominating a New England team that gave them some trouble early on. But for New England, the biggest thing is this roster, they spent a lot of money. They went all out. They wanted to get back to winning. They won 10 games. They were close to getting to the division. If things go a little bit differently, right? Ball bounces a different way. We're talking about maybe New England hosting this game, and maybe we're talking about a New England win. But the reality of it is the cold weather, Bills being home, just New England's not there yet to take down the Buffalo Bills. And at the moment, Buffalo Bills are the team to beat in the AFC East. That's the reality of it. And can Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots get back to being the AFC East dominators, the AFC East, team that everyone hates? Can they get back to that? We'll see. Big offseason coming up. Bills got the win 47-17 on the back of Josh Allen and his 5 touchdowns. By the way, he threw more touchdowns than incompletions. He went 21 of 25, so 4 incompletions, and he threw 5 touchdowns, 308 yards. Just tore up the Patriots. I mean, tore them up. Patriots look like they did not even deserve to be there. Buffalo wins 47-17. Alrighty, 3 games yesterday. One of the 3 was good. The other 2 were really not great. Buccaneers-Eagles was an awful game. I mean, not even just for I'm going to tell you this. Neither team played it great. I will sit here today and tell you that neither team played great. The Eagles played terrible. I mean, they played awful. They did not even look like they belonged in the playoffs. The Buccaneers did not play up to the ability that they're capable of. I get it. They did score 31 points and they still won. I'm not going to sit here and say, they didn't play well enough. But I will tell you this: if the Buccaneers had to go into Lambeau and they played like that, they would lose like 38-31. They would. No doubt about that. They were playing an Eagles team that we knew going into this game, this Eagles team was undermanned. We knew this Eagles team had issues. I thought this game was going to be close because I thought the weather was going to play effect with Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones being out. I didn't think that Tampa Bay was going to be able to run the ball that effectively because of their 2 big backs being out. Also just banged up overall, right? I just did not think when it raining, with the weather being like it is, Eagles team that's so good in the run game. Jalen Hurts, best rushing quarterback in the league this season statistically. Look at the numbers. Leads the league in yards, touchdowns, and I forget some other stat rushing as well. Might be average per carry. I'm not sure. He's the best best running quarterback this season statistically. You have Miles Sanders coming off of injury. Seems like he was ready to go. You have all those weapons to run, and the weather was beautiful. And the Buccaneers were able to throw the ball and really look like the playoff team, and the Eagles could not throw the ball. And that's the reality of it, right? Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. Is he great? No. Is he Joe Burrow? No. Is he Justin Herbert? No. He's Jalen Hurts. He's a guy that is an average thrower, is an above average thrower, and he's an average thrower, and he's above average rushing quarterback. That's the reality of it. I shouldn't say that. Not above average. He's one of the better. He's the best rushing quarterback statistically in the league. You could say anything you want. He is the best this year in the league at rushing. You could say Jackson, all that, he missed time. I get that. You could say, Lamar Jackson. I understand. But statistically, he was the best. Back to my point though with the throwing. He's an average thrower. His accuracy was a little bit off. They couldn't get the ball much to Devontae Smith. Everything that I feel like could have went wrong for the Eagles in this game went wrong. They couldn't get the run game established. Jalen Hurts turned the ball over. They, had the muff punt. You get a big stop on defense, you get the ball back, they muff the punt. You couldn't get Devontae Smith the ball. Dallas Goedert had a pivotal drop that very well could have been a scoring drive late in the first half. Everything that could have went wrong for the Eagles. And going into this game, I did say that the Buccaneers would win. I thought it was going to be closer than 31-15, but I thought the Buccaneers were going to win. I think I predicted like 31-24. Was it 31-20? It was something like that. It wasn't 31-15, I could tell you that. It was somewhere around like 31-something. Or maybe it was 24. I don't know. It was something closer than 16-point victory. But everything that could have went wrong for the Eagles went wrong. And it was ugly. It was bad. It was sloppy. It was just not the brand of football you need to play and you have to play to beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And look, the Buccaneers, they didn't play spectacular either. They had some injuries, right? Brady got sacked 4 times. Their offense started to stall a little bit to start off late in the first and then to start off the second half, right? It wasn't pretty, definitely. It definitely wasn't pretty, but they were able to do enough, and they were able to get the win 31-15. Realistically, it was a 31-0 game. I mean, 15 garbage time points is what happened with the Eagles. I mean, it was just garbage time scores and just kind of scores for pride and to make it look a little less ugly than a 31-point victory. But Tom Brady finished with 29-37, 271 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He did take 4 sacks. Some injuries on the offensive line were a big factor into that, and he had a rating of 115.2. So still, they win, they move on, and now you're looking at a Buccaneers versus whoever the winner of tonight's game is, whether that's the Rams or the Cardinals. So next week it is the Packers and Niners, and the Buccaneers versus the winner of tonight's game. All right, so let's get to the craziest game of the weekend. The game that I want to talk about, I don't know what in the world was going on. The 49ers and Dallas Cowboys. Niners win this one 23-17. To be honest, I don't think the score of this game just tells you how crazy it was. I mean, down the stretch, right, the final, 30 seconds were really just, it felt like it was a 1-point game. This was a wild game. The game started out pretty bad. Niners scored 10 points early on, set the tone early. Cowboys looked terrible. I mean, they couldn't get anything going on offense. They looked terrible. They were averaging, for a moment there, they were averaging like 0.9 yards every play. It was terrible. They were in like the negatives. It was awful. It looked like this was going to be another Tampa Bay Eagles game all over again, which is exactly what we did not expect and exactly what we didn't want. And sure enough, we got a really good game, in the end of it. But to start off, the game was terrible. And going into halftime, it was a 9-point game. Dallas comes out, doesn't do anything in the third quarter, and Dallas decides to come alive in the fourth, or at least try to come alive, at least try to make a comeback. They score 10 points in the third quarter. They make it a 23-17 game. You had the interception. You then had the score. Dak Prescott kind of put the team on his back and said, hey, this is our season right here. We need to do stuff. You had the wild Deebo Samuel, reverse play where I do agree with the call. I do think it was an inch short, which is the thing. An inch short. Niners then line up at the line of scrimmage. Trent Williams, they get called for a false start. Not everybody was set. So then they have to punt. It's a touchback. It wasn't a good punt. It was a touchback, so they didn't pin him back. And then you have the Cowboys. The Niners, in a way, they had the game in their hands. If they just ran a quarterback sneak they got the first down. On the quarterback sneak, they got the first down, but it was a false start. Now, did the false start mean much in the play? No, because he went left. Trent Williams was on the right side. So they had a strong side and a weak side. So he went strong side. Trent Williams motioned over to the right. He took the left side block and took it for a first down. And rightfully so, right? 4th down and inches, the right calls to go for a quarterback sneak. Jimmy G got the first down, but it was a false start. They end up having to punt. Cowboys get the ball, at their own 25-yard line with about 30 seconds left, no timeouts. Now, let me mind you, Cowboys could have been in a completely different situation if they never had a penalty on defense. Penalty on defense made the Niners get a fresh set of downs. They still forced them out, but they let the clock. They were able to let the clock run. So if there was never that penalty, you could have the Cowboys probably would have had about a minute left and a lot more to work with than 30 seconds and stuff. It could have been a completely different turnout. But that's not the point where I'm getting at. The point that I'm getting at here is, the Cowboys were driving. Niners looked awful on defense. I mean, really though, what can you do, right? You're gonna let up the big pass. You're gonna let up passes you're gonna play backed off defense. You can let anything underneath go. That's fine. You just can't let anything go over top and get the ball get behind you, or else there's a score and boom, your season could be over with a blink of an eye. Cowboys are driving. You get down to 40-yard line-ish. Niners 40, I would say. Cowboys have 14 seconds left, no timeouts, and they run the ball. Now, what was working was getting the ball to the out of bounds. They had the nice play. I think it was to Wilson, flipped it to Zeke. I think Zeke got another like 10 yards. Everything was working. They were getting the ball out of bounds. They were stopping the clock. They were getting big 15, 20-yard chunks. They were doing everything that you need a team to do when they're without any timeouts and you need to get a score late. They were doing. Getting out of bounds and getting big chunks. That's what you need to do. And each play was only lasting about 4 to 5 seconds, which is what you need, right? Quick throws, get yards, get out of bounds, stop the clock. They were doing that. 14 seconds left. They decided to run a designed quarterback run, not a sneak. There's a difference between a quarterback sneak and a run. This is not what the Giants did against Washington, so it wasn't that dumb. But it was a designed quarterback run, no timeouts, 14 seconds to go. Well, everything was working. And I understand the Niners started to line up, put their defenders up against this, near the sideline. I get all that, but still, you can't use that as an excuse. So what? You could have had a throw across the middle that only wastes 4 seconds. You get up, spike it, 8 seconds left. You're at like maybe the 15-yard line. You're talking about a completely different storyline today. Instead, they run the ball with not Zach Wilson. I was about to say Zach Prescott. Instead, they run the ball with Dak Prescott. And he gets, about 15, 20 yards with the run. He gets down. There's probably about like 7 seconds left. Clock's ticking. Down to 2, down to 1. Dak. Dak calls hike, boom, spikes the ball, game's over. Not enough time, they run out of time. What in the world were the Dallas Cowboys thinking running a QB run with 14 seconds, no timeouts? I don't disagree with the call if there's like 20 seconds left because it got a big chunk of yards. But 14 seconds, no timeouts. And Dak, too, set the ball for his lineman. And the ref, this is why, the umps, right? The ref, rather. This is why the ref, like, everybody's blaming the refs today. That you can't do that. That's not fair. I understand there was some bad things early on in the game that happened, right? The delay of game penalty that happened due to the ref not getting out of there in time. But the ref needs to touch the ball. The ref needs to touch the ball before every play, which is why a lot of times you see quarterbacks or players take the ball, hand it to the ref when they're in hurry-up situations. They give it to the ref, let him, place down the ball, they call hike, and they run another play. Or call hike, spike it, or call hike, run another play, whatever it is. They need to touch the ball. So Dak put the ball down, and he tried to get it up for his center. Center was about to snap it. Here comes the ref coming in, trying to get the ball to touch it because he needs to spot it himself. That's the rule. That's how it is. It's been like that forever. And sure enough, they run out of time. They don't get a snap off. And for the expectations going into the season for the Cowboys, the expectation going into this game was that the Cowboys, should have had a good playoff and another early exit for the Dallas Cowboys. And now it leaves you with some serious questions. Is Mike McCarthy going to be the head coach for the Cowboys much longer? As of right now, when I'm recording this video, he is still the head coach. Could that change? Maybe. There was reports that came out before the game yesterday. Depending on how far they got, depending on if they did not exceed expectations, McCarthy could be out, and they could look at Dan Quinn as Kellen Moore, their two coordinators, as possibilities to bring in. But look, right, I guess the expectation, I can only imagine the expectations to win a Super Bowl. I know the expectation wasn't to get to the wild card round. I know Jerry Jones wants much more than that. He said he was frustrated about it. He wasn't happy about it. I can't get over the fact that they ran a design quarterback run with 14 seconds left. And you could say, Dak needed to get down earlier. You had 14 seconds left. What was it, like first down? They just got a new fresh set of downs. Like Tony Romo said on the broadcast, they could have made a throw across the middle for 10 yards, got up and spiked it in time. A quarterback sneak is a completely different story, right? It's going to take much more time. It took about 7-8 seconds. A throw could take about 4 seconds. Instead, it took another 3-4 seconds off the clock, which when you're in a situation like that, the matter between 2 seconds and 3 seconds could be the difference of a game. And that ultimately what it was. They did not have enough time. And it wasn't a miscommunication. I think they set that up. They just didn't have enough time. I just don't know why. Like, I get why, because they got yards. Like, the Niners defense wasn't expecting it. They got a big chunk out of it. But with the time they had, I would be willing to take the risk at the end zone twice and have a possibility of having 2 incompletions in the game being over than trying to quarterback sneak with 14 seconds left with the risk of game being over and you don't get a shot at the end zone. That's the worst possible thing that could happen. is the Cowboys didn't get a shot at the end zone. And that's what I was saying watching that game. Like, the worst thing the Cowboys could have had happen was with, 5 seconds left, they, I don't know, get the ball in bounds and they, or something like that, or they can't get a shot, they can't get a true shot to the end zone. They never got a shot to the end zone, so we'll never know. We'll never know, and that's the worst thing that could have happened. Even if it was a miracle heave from midfield, getting a shot at the end zone is your best chance. Not a quarterback run that's going to pick you up 20 yards, waste 8 seconds, try to get up to the line and call a hike in the matter of 5 seconds. Not going to happen, and it didn't happen. And a serious head-scratching decision by Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, and the offensive staff in Dallas. And again, like I said, today, if you're a Cowboy fan, you're looking at another season where you really underachieved. And Tony Romo said it yesterday perfectly on the broadcast. Right? There's no word developing. There's a bright future. Like, this was the team. Like, they went out, spent money. They got, they spent money. They've spent a lot of money, right? When Dak came in 2016, when they didn't win it that year, they were like, okay, he's young. They're still developing. But now they were like it's all about the future. Like, when this is the future now. Like, this is your time to win. Like, this is your range. And they couldn't win it this year. They couldn't get to the Super Bowl this year. They seriously thought they had a team. They finally got a really good defense and a really good offense, and they couldn't do it. So, you wonder where the Cowboys go from here. But we'll have to see, because that's a very tough loss to take. And they head into an offseason with some uncertainties. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Mike McCarthy. I know I'm going to probably get a lot of Cowboys fans that disagree. I wouldn't fire Mike McCarthy. I don't really think McCarthy's the issue. I don't think it's the issue. I just think it's, I think it's just a lot of, it's just bad play in the playoffs. I mean, just some bad football. I mean, yesterday was just bad football. Penalties, undisciplined football, just bad football. I guess you could say decision making. I mean, I think Kellen Moore really came down to that decision. Mike McCarthy also had some say in it, but decision making too was bad. I mean, I don't know why you run a quarterback run play with 14 seconds left, and it's just not good enough. Not good enough, and Cowboys fall yet again and go into an offseason where we'll see what happens with Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore. Possibilities they're out. Maybe they're the next coach of the Cowboys. We'll see. But yet another season of underachievement for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott and all them and company will head into an offseason. And look, they went 12-5. They won the NFC East. They got a home playoff game. Nothing more you can ask for there. You get a home playoff game against a Niners team that, is good, but it's definitely beatable. I mean, they're 10-7, so they're definitely beatable. They lost 7 times. Couldn't get it done. So Niners move on, and they now head to Green Bay for a big matchup next weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun. Jimmy G went 16-25, 172 yards, 10.8 was average, no touchdown, and a pick, rating of 67.4. Well, look, it wasn't pretty for Jimmy G, especially that crucial interception, in the fourth, right? It wasn't pretty, but he did what he needed. He did. Hey, they won. So, although it wasn't pretty, they won, and he did just enough. Alrighty, so Chiefs and Steelers was a blowout. Like I said, 42-21. Don't need to say much about this game other than, look, Big Ben most likely played his final game in the NFL. Steelers made the game fun for a quarter and a half, I would say. I think we all can agree, once the Chiefs scored that touchdown to end the first half, I knew it was over. If the Steelers would have held them and it would have been a 7-point game going to halftime, I think any Steelers fan would have signed up for that, to go into halftime only down 7. That's like a dream come true there. I don't think many Steelers fans expected that, but when they had the touchdown to Tyreek Hill to end the half, I believe it was Tyreek Hill, that's just terrible. And that was terrible. Like, that just took all the energy out of the Steelers. And then they go into the second half and get 14 points, but get outscored 21-14, and they lost 42-21. And for Big Ben, his era is pretty much over. I think he said it all along. He said it last night that he's looking forward to the next chapter. I think he's all but retired at this point. We are just waiting at this point for the social media announcement that says, after a lot of consideration and all that, I'm retiring from the game of football. That's all we're waiting for. He's pretty much retired. And for the Steelers, they move into a different direction. And now they head into a new era of Steelers football. Who's going to be your quarterback? Do you go out and sign somebody? Do you stick with Mason Rudolph? I don't think that's the case. Do you try to maybe trade for somebody in the draft? Do you get somebody in the draft, trade up in the draft? What do you do? There's definitely some options. It's not a stacked quarterback class this year by any means, but they have options. We'll see what route they take. With the Big Bear era seemingly being over in Pittsburgh, and Kansas City moves on, and they will play the Buffalo Bills next weekend at Arrowhead in what should be a very exciting and fun AFC Championship game. By the way, or AFC Divisional game, rather. By the way, the early odds for the Bills-Chiefs is 2.5-point favorites to Chiefs. Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. That's the early odds. Early odds for all the games outside of the Buccaneers and whoever wins tonight, because that's not decided yet. Titans are 3-point favorites against the Bengals. The Packers are 5.5-point favorites against the Niners, and the Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites against the Bills. So those are your opening lines. That Bills-Chiefs game is definitely going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a close game. I could say that game could be even better than the Niners-Cowboys, because I think you're going to get an extremely high-scoring affair. I could see like a 35-31, 38-35 type game. I could see a game with a lot of scoring and it coming down to maybe a game-winning drive or something like that. Alrighty, so anyway, so that's recap for the weekend. Some good, most of them were, outside of the Raiders and the Bengals, outside of the Bengals, Raiders, and, Niners-Cowboys game, they were all pretty much blowouts, which I guess, I don't think many of us expected. I think we all expected that Patriots game to be relatively, Patriots-Bills to be closer. I did expect Buccaneers-Eagles to be closer. I don't think anybody's surprised by the final score of the 21-point victory by the Chiefs. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. I think we all expected that. But anyway, we got to hope tonight is not a 21-point win by either team. We got to hope tonight's a close game, and I think it should be, an interesting game. I don't think it's going to be extremely close. I hope it's close. I have a bad feeling that it could turn into a blowout for one side that I'm going to pick, but we'll see how everything goes. Rams, Cardinals tonight. Rams come into this game 12-5. They are your NFC West champions. Cardinals come into this game 11-6. Rams are 3.5-point favorites coming into this game, and the over/under is set at a high, an over/under at 50. So expecting some scoring, expecting Kyler Murray and Matt Stafford to have some good games, and not expecting much defense is what the over/under is telling us. This game comes on tonight, 8:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, wrapping up wild card weekend in the NFL. Rams are home, SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. First time SoFi Stadium will be hosting a playoff game in front of fans this season. For whatever it's worth, before I give you my pick, Rams are 56% of people think the Rams win this game. So 56% of bets are for the Rams to beat the Arizona Cardinals tonight. All right, so look, this is going to be a fun game. I'm hoping that this game's good. I'm hoping that this game's close. I'm not really feeling it's going to be an extremely close game just because I think one team has the big advantage over the other team. I think one team's much healthier over the other team. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is a good game. I hope it's a game that, you're watching with, definitely some enjoyment and excitement late into the third and early into the fourth. I don't want this to be a game where going into halftime it's 21-3 and, game's over going into the second half. I hope that's not the case because that's not what playoff football is about. Playoff football is what the Cowboys-Niners game was all about. Coming down to the final drive and maybe some controversy the next day. We're all going to be talking about it for the next week, right? That's what playoff football is all about. Coming down to the final couple plays, not 31-15, not 42-21 or 47-17. Playoff football's about tough, gritty, close games that come down to the final couple plays and realistically come down to the final minute or so. And until those clocks hit triple zeros, that both teams are battling and fighting at the highest level possible. That's what playoff football is about. So that's why I hope we get today. But I do think it's going to be a little bit of a pretty big difference in margin between these two teams. And look, right, going into the season, to start the year, Cardinals were really hot. They were firing on all cylinders. They were playing really well. They looked like a complete team. Kyler Murray was your early MVP candidate. DeAndre Hopkins was playing well. You had all these guys fitting in and all those things going right. And things have kind of spiraled a little bit recently, in recent weeks for the Cardinals, right? After, winning, after starting off your season so smoothly, and after beating the Bears in Week 13, they lost their final 4 out of the 5 games again in the season, including, the brutal loss against the Lions, and including, the loss against the Seahawks to end the year, a Seahawks team that is not very, very good. And, who knows? You look back on this game, and, you look back on the result of this game, and let's say the Cardinals don't win this one. You look back on it and say, if you beat the Seahawks, you had home field advantage, a completely different story. But, for the Rams, look, this is what I'm going to tell you about the Rams, is if the Rams want to beat the Cardinals, they need to spread the wealth. They need to get the ball to their receivers, to the guys that are truly going to make play. Not hone in on one receiver, not purposely throw to this guy or get the ball to this guy. They need to spread the ball out. Get the ball to Cooper Kupp. Get the ball to your other assets. Get it to Higby. Get it to guys like that. Don't try to force feed one guy. And one guy I'm talking to in particular is Odell Beckham. Because there's times where quarterbacks, no matter whether you've been in the league for so long or you were a young player like Baker Mayfield when he was playing with, Odell, you can't force feed him the ball. The Cardinals today are going to look to eliminate either Odell or Cooper Kupp. If they eliminate Cooper Kupp, then you got to try to get the ball to Odell. But something Matt Stafford tends to do at times is force feed Odell. Try to just get the ball to Odell. Get it to Odell. Get it to Odell. Get it to Odell. Oh, Odell hasn't had a catch today. Let's try to get it to him. That's a lot of times what they try to do. And it never works out. We've seen it. We've seen it time and time again. When the Rams, which is why they've had so much success this year, get the ball to Cooper Kupp, get the ball and spread the wealth to different receivers, they win. When they try to force feed one guy and try to give the guy the ball too much, they don't win. So listen, this is ultimately what I think it comes down to. I do think the Rams win tonight. I do. And I think they win by a decent margin because the Cardinals are just too beat up. And, Kyler Murray in his, 3-year career so far at quarterback is 1-5, I believe, against the Rams. He has struggled against the Rams. He has not beaten the Rams. Rams have always had his number. Even when they had Jared Goff and, stuff like that. Sean McVay, that Rams team has always had, Kyler Murray's number. He hasn't been able to beat him much, and he hasn't been able to beat him with all of his assets, and he's missing assets now. This is a Cardinals team that is a completely different football team without DeAndre Hopkins. And, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be back for this game. So you're talking about a team that's going to be without DeAndre Hopkins, which since he's left, they have not been the same team. We've seen it. And you're going into a game against a full-strength Rams team, a team with, this season statistically the best wide receiver in the league in Cooper Kupp, and a Rams team that has dominated the Cardinals for the past 3 seasons. So ultimately, at home, SoFi Stadium, I think that place is going to be rocking, considering, first time a playoff game's been there with fans. I expect a Rams victory, and I expect them to win by a pretty good amount. I just don't think this Cardinals offense led by Kyler Murray is good enough to beat a Rams team with Cooper Kupp, with Matt Stafford, with Cam Akers coming back, all those assets. You look at the defensive side, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Aaron Donald, all of those pieces on that defense and offensive side of the ball. Cardinals are just not good enough without Hopkins. And when they aren't healthy, even when they are healthy, they've had struggles beating the Rams. They're not healthy. I don't expect them to go out on the road and, find AJ Green to have a huge game. They just are not the same team without DeAndre Hopkins. And even when they have Hopkins, Kyler Murray has always struggled to beat the Rams. Give me Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, and the Los Angeles Rams to get a playoff win at home. SoFi Stadium, I think, is going to be rocking. Give me the Rams. 31-14 or 31-17 Rams win. 31-20, actually. I'll take 31-20 Rams win. I'll take the over on the over-under of 50, and I think the Rams win and cover the 3.5 points. Give me the Los Angeles Rams, led by Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. Give me the Rams. That is my final wild card weekend pick to go 6-1 or 5-1 rather on my picks throughout the 6 games coming up this weekend. So Rams, is my pick for tonight's Monday night wild card game. Alrighty, now let's get to Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets and his injury that has made news throughout the league. We'll get to that here coming up. Nets, like I said, Nets on tonight. Nets today, rather, an afternoon matchup today against Cleveland for an MLK Day matchup, which is a lot of day games on tonight. I got to admit, I know it's rare to get them, but I like day basketball games. A lot of fun. I like day games in general. Like day basketball games, you get it done with. You have the rest of the day, Night games, I know they happen a lot, but I always enjoy when there's a day net game on, or day anything, day games. Like I said, I always like the Jets when they play at 1 Eastern, that's my favorite. 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, primetime games, Thursday night games, I'm not a huge fan of those from my favorite team standpoint. I'd rather have my teams play early on and watch, any of the other sports that are on later on that day. So, Nets today, they will be out with Kevin Durant. They will be out without Kevin Durant. I'll get to him and the injury. MCL sprain Kevin Durant suffered against the Pelicans Saturday night. We'll get to him and the Nets coming up next. All right, so we welcome you back here up at the podcast here today, Monday edition of the BSN Network program here. Obviously just got done recapping all the NFL games, and tonight you got the Rams-Cardinals to officially finish off Wild Card Weekend. Winner of tonight's game will head to Tampa to play the Buccaneers next weekend. Alrighty, so Kevin Durant rumors, injury update here. Nets are optimistic KD will return from knee injury in 4 to 6 weeks. So they are optimistic. He's hopeful. Sorry about that. Let me redo what I say. They are optimistic and hopeful that Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant's also kind of optimistic himself that he will return to play within 4 to 6 weeks against, or back in action against the Nets. I don't know exactly what game it will be. All I know is Kevin Durant being out there is huge, and when he's not out there, it's huge for the wrong reasons. And this is obviously something that I find, I find I find most of my sports fandom these days is worrying about injuries. Like, especially if you see a guy, even if it's not my favorite team. Like, if you see a guy tear it up in any league, your always biggest concern is, like, what if this guy gets injured? Like, or what if something, like, major happens, like, injury-wise, that just finished, like, he's out for a long time. And, like, that was my biggest worry this season with Zach Wilson. Was, like, the last thing you need is for him to get injured, which he got injured. And not saying it was a good thing, but I think it definitely benefited him the time off of being injured. And I guess that good old saying of all things happen for a reason, I guess that was kind of in correlation with the saying. In the heat of the moment, getting injured was not a good thing for Wilson. But hindsight 2020, I think he definitely benefited from the couple weeks that he had off. Was able to watch, the other quarterbacks play in the system, and was able to, kind of just sit back and watch the game from a different point of view. And, kind of just being thrust into playing quarterback to kind of take a step back and look and really just get his body right and his mind back to being right, I think was huge, and was able to build up confidence. And since his injury, at post-injury, he was a completely different player, and he finished off the season really strong, which is good to see, and you got to hope that, carries into next season, which I've talked about many times. We'll get to more of the Jets as the offseason goes on. But, my biggest thing about sports fandom these days is, like, injuries, worrying about injuries. Like, what if this guy gets injured? And, like, the biggest thing is, like, what if, Kevin Durant goes down, and now he's down? Now, that wasn't really what my thought process was. You only think about it every once in a while, like, what if this guy gets injured? But Kevin Durant does get injured here. Now, speaking of Zach Wilson and Kevin Durant, not to always bring up the Jets, but I do try to bring up comparisons from other New York sports teams or other sports teams in general. Kevin Durant has an MCL sprain. This is pretty much the same injury as Wilson. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to sit here and say, this is when the knee does this, and this is what happens, this is how long it's going to take. I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know. I actually do know there's some doctors on YouTube, which, you can laugh if you want, but Actually, when Kevin Durant went down, I watched a video on, like, he's a sports doctor and he does stuff with sports injuries. And when athletes have injuries, he talks about them. So there was a video he uploaded on Kevin Durant's injury, which this injury was not something that was like something where he was trying, doing a, just stopped or was running or trying to cut to the basket. This was a teammate blow. He was, Bruce Brown got pushed. He was falling back. He was trying to brace himself, right? His arms were kind of flailing back, and he hit Durant in the knee and got him pretty good right on the knee. And his knee, if you watch it in slow motion, his knee definitely moved. I mean, it definitely strained, and he got up limping, and obviously it was painful enough for him not to keep playing. And here's the thing with Nets fans, right? A lot of Nets fans are like, oh no, what do we do now? This is terrible. Oh my gosh. It could have been a lot worse. You always think about, the worst thing that could possibly happen. Because, look, if this would have been like a torn ACL or something, I'm going to go straight to the point. Our season's over. Forget about it. It would have been done. But since it is only an MCL strain, and it is something that you got to hope he's back within the 4 to 6 week timetable, preferably be back in 4 weeks, which would just be a month, which might seem like a long time, but with how time goes and with the rehab process is really not a crazy amount of time. Considering we aren't even halfway through the season yet, to be out for a month is a decent amount of time, but in retrospect, if you look at the big picture, it's not a season-defying amount of time. What I will tell you is this is a big stretch for the Nets in terms of trying to still maintain, being near the top of the Eastern Conference. Because the last thing, and we talk about minutes with Kevin Durant, and this was my point earlier, I said, the last thing you need is for the Nets here to start really playing bad, which I kind of expect because we aren't the same team without Kevin Durant. But is the Nets to start playing bad, and then all of a sudden when Kevin Durant comes back, you need him to kind of do a little bit of a carry a little bit, and get you back to, up near the top of the Eastern Conference. Because you talk about minutes and you talk about overusing him, you would then be in a situation where you're going to need to play Kevin Durant a whole lot down the stretch of the season if this next month goes terribly for the Brooklyn Nets. So Kyrie Irving, James Harden, in the games that Kyrie Irving plays, which is strictly the road games, Nets need to really take advantage when Kyrie's out there. Because without Kyrie and only James Harden, they're not the same team. Without Durant, they're not the same team. But if you can still try to piece, if Harden and Kyrie can still piece together wins, and when Kyrie's out there in just road games, can piece together wins, and at least do just enough to keep their head above water while KD's out, that's what you need. The last thing we need, like I said, is for us to start really playing bad, and then you put yourself into a situation where, oh no, we need, when Kevin Durant comes back, we need him to be playing 40 minutes every night down the stretch and try to come back and save our season. That's the last thing we need. So that's what my point was earlier. And there is a part of me as a Net fan that's a little nervous that things might go haywire. Definitely. But you got to hope that the Nets are able to find a way to keep their head above water and still win games even without Durant. And it's not going to be easy at all. It's going to be tough. And you got some good opponents coming up. You got a good, feisty, young Cleveland team tonight or today. You do have some winnable games coming up, though. There's no doubt about that. You also have a lot of road games coming up. So I don't want to sound, I don't want to be, because an injury is never a good thing. But I do kind of, look at the positive side of things. Look, you have a lot of road games coming up. You got 4 road games in a row, then you have 2 at home. And then you head on the road for another you have a West Coast trip, which will include the Warriors, Suns, Kings, Jazz, Nuggets, and then you back home for one against the Celtics, and you're on the road again, then you're home, road again. So right now it is January 16th, 17th today. So earliest, I guess, would be about February 17th, 24th range, which would be Wizards-Celtics time. Maybe KD comes back after the All-Star break. There's a good chance that KD might come back after the All-Star break, which would be February 17th to February 24th is the All-Star break. So there's a good chance KD does come back with the All-Star break, and which would be actually a big time for him to come back, because just look at our schedule, and this is actually, the more and more I think about it, is pivotal. Good chance Kevin Durant comes back to the All-Star break. And this is what I'm talking about, where the Nets can't dig themselves into a hole. This is the Nets schedule coming out of the All-Star break. So going into the All-Star break, they'll have the Kings, Knicks, Wizards. All 3 very winnable games, whether KD's out there or not out there. Then February 24th is the first game back from the week off All-Star break, right? You have the Celtics, Bucks, Raptors back-to-back. Then you have the Heat, Celtics, Hornets, Sixers. That's a very tough schedule to end February and open March. And if Kevin Durant comes back the first game out of the All-Star break against the Celtics, and the Nets, let's just say, find themselves in a hole where they are nowhere near where they were, where we're talking today, you're going to have to ask him to come out and play a whole lot and play at a very high level and do that for most of all of March and into April. And come playoff time, you talk about being overused. You might thrust Kevin Durant into a situation where he is kind of overused in terms of minutes and all that into March and into April. So the Nets need to keep their head above water. They need to win these games. Because although on paper right now these games might not mean much, like a Wednesday night in Washington, D.C. against the Wizards might not mean much right now, come February when when he comes back, when we're facing those high-end teams, these games are going to mean a whole lot more if we find ourselves really struggling. So, and that's why a trade, do the Nets maybe strike a trade? I would have no issue with it. All I ask is it not be a major trade. It could be something small. It could be a kind of player for players type deal. Something like that just to, give this team a little burst. And maybe we'll see. Who knows? Maybe the Nets don't really get impacted very negatively here, which I hope that's the case. I hope the Nets continue to play. I hope the Nets, they're still kind of in a funk. We've been in this tough win-loss thing, right? We won against the Pacers, lost against the Bucks, beat the Spurs, lost against Trailblazers, beat the Bulls, lost against the Thunder, beat the Pelicans. So I want, we've been in this tough win-loss thing, not getting anything consistent going, but you got to hope that we get something going. And that's the goal, right? Because then if KD comes back and we're kind of where we are now, second seed, boom. Then KD comes back and that's the perfect time to try to make your final push at getting the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And that's the ultimate goal, right? So that's all I ask is the Nets, please, Kevin Durant or James Harden and Kyrie Irving need to, get this team going. And as much as it might sound really funny, because it is, it's just the reality where we're at, but hey, you're actually kind of excited that these are road games coming up. Because these are some real opportunities to get Kyrie and this team really going. And you get Kyrie for the next, 11 of the next 14 games. So you got to hope that the Nets just do enough to keep their head above water. And KD comes back, and he comes back sooner rather than later and comes back the Kevin Durant that we saw all of this season up to this point. And I get it. There's all those fans saying, unlucky. Look, injuries happen. Look at Klay Thompson. He was out for 2 years, right? It could be much worse. It could be way worse than this. So I'm obviously definitely upset. You don't want to see anybody get injured. You don't want to see Kevin Durant miss any time at all. That's how good of a player he is. You don't want to see anybody get injured. If there was a thing that players could do where they don't get injured, I'm sure everybody would. I'm sure all fans would want that. But this is just not the reality of it. Injuries happen throughout sports. In regular life, injuries happen. It is what it is. I'm hearing so many Nets fans say, oh, unlucky, this is always us. Look, it's the reality of it. It's sports. Look at Klay Thompson. He was out for seemed like forever, right? Which kind of was. He was out for, 900-something days. Okay? Up to a couple days ago, up to his return, the last time he touched the court was, the NBA Finals against the Raptors, I believe, right? And that was when Kevin Durant was still a Golden State Warrior, just to put it into perspective. So, look at that, for example. It could be way worse. Kevin Durant tore his Achilles. He missed the whole season because of it. This is 4 to 6 weeks. It's not the end of the world, but what I'm trying to say is when Kevin Durant comes back, it can't be a situation where he needs to play massive minutes all into March and finish out April like that. Because then you go into the playoffs and he might be gassed and boom, you might be a first-round exit instead of making the finals. That's all I'm saying. So, and we'll see, and we'll find out pretty quickly if this team can still win games and compete at a high level without KD. Alright, I guess one positive is they did finish off the game, and the young guys didn't play with a lot of energy, but they did finish off the game against the Pelicans without KD. So, they did build a nice lead. He went off, they finished it off. So, I guess that's one positive, but we'll see how everything goes. And, the young players have been playing with a lot of juice, so I will tell you that does excite me. that the young players play with a lot of juice. So that is one thing that I will say is definitely keeps your hopes up that the Nets can still play at a high level even without Kevin Durant. But anyway, Nets are optimistic. KD will return from knee injury in 4 to 6 weeks. So Brooklyn Nets star Kevin Durant suffered a left knee sprain in Saturday's 120-105 win over the New Orleans Pelicans, and his MRI on Sunday revealed he had a sprained medial collateral ligament, the team announced. There is no timetable for his return, but the team said he will be back after a period of rehab. ESPN J. Jordan Wojnarowski, citing sources, reported that there's optimism within the Nets that there will be a 4 to 6 week rehab and return for Kevin Durant. Like I said, most likely he'll probably be back sometime after the All-Star break, which will be later February. Durant exited the first half of Saturday's game after Bruce Brown fell into his knee while trying to defend against Pelicans forward Herbert Jones. The 33-year-old also missed 3 games in December after being placed in the NBA's health and safety protocols. He returned for the loss to the Philadelphia 76ers on December 30th. Durant has played great this season and is viewed as an early MVP candidate. He ranks first in the NBA with 29.7 points per game, helping lead Brooklyn to a 27-15 record. He's also averaging 7.5 rebounds and 5.9 assists while shooting 52% from the field and 37.1% from deep. The small forward has also taken on a massive load this year, playing more than 40 minutes 8 times through 35 games. He was tasked with playing more minutes with when the Nets were without Kyrie Irving and James Harden at points during the year. With Durant sidelined, Brooklyn will need Irving and Harden to carry the team. However, that will be difficult for Irving to do. He can only play in away games because New York City's COVID-19 vaccine mandate prevents unvaccinated individuals from entering indoor arenas. So players like Brown, Nick Claxton, and Blake Griffin will need to step up. You also put, Patty Mills under that list, Cam Thomas, a lot of guys. They're going to need to step up. You could say every guy, level of contribution to the team needs to be a little bit higher now that KD's out. And I understand here this final sentence is all true with the mandate and Kyrie can't play home games, but there's a lot of road games coming up, so a lot of games Kyrie will be in, which is a positive, for the Nets and Kyrie and all that stuff. So got to hope that KD's back sooner rather than later, and while he's out, you got to hope that the Nets can still win games and play at a high level. So that's what I got for Kevin Durant and his MCL sprain. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks, so we'll see how everything plays out. All right, so let's get to the New York Sports Update and transition right on over to hockey and basketball, which is what we were just at. We'll start with basketball first. Today we got the Pelicans Celtics on. I'll give the Celtics the win. Hornets and Knicks afternoon game at the Garden starting up soon. I will give the Hornets the win. I think that would be Hornets or Knicks. I don't even know. That's tough to say. I'll give the Hornets the win. Why not? Knicks have been hot. Knicks have been hot, though. I don't know. I guess I'll just give the Hornets the win, but don't be surprised if the Knicks win that game. But give me the Hornets. 76ers, Wizards, I'll give 76ers a win. Grizzlies, Bulls, give Grizzlies the win. Clippers, Pacers, I'll give Clippers the win. Hawks, Bucks, give Hawks the win. Or Bucks to win, rather. Trailblazers, Magic, give Trailblazers the win. Heat, Raptors, I'll give Heat the win. Spurs, Suns, give Suns the win. Mavericks, Thunder, give Mavericks the win. And Jazz, Lakers, I'll give Jazz the win. Nets, which is what we were just talking about, play today against the Cavs. Nets come in this game 27-15. Cavs come into this game 26-18. Cavaliers are 4-point favorites, and the Nets are obviously the underdogs. Over-under is set at 222. This is in Cleveland. Today, 3 p.m. Eastern. You can find this game on Yes Network. 98% of people think Cleveland Cavs win this game. Sadly, I think the Cavs do win. But we'll see. Hopefully the Nets win, but, we'll see how everything goes. As for hockey, we got a lot of games on today. Avalanche, Wild, I'll give Avalanche the win. Coyotes, Canadians, I'll give Coyotes the win. Kings, Sharks, give Kings the win. Kraken, Blackhawks, I'll give Kraken the win. Let's see here. What else we got? Islanders, Flyers, I'll give Islanders the win. Blues, Predators, I'll give Blues the win. Golden Knights, Penguins, I'll give Penguins the win. Or actually, Golden Knights to win. Sabres, Red Wings as well. I will give Sabres to win. And college basketball, We got, got to load here. Purdue, Illinois, really good game. Purdue is the number 4th ranked team in the nation going into this game. Illinois is the 17th ranked team in the nation going into this game. I'm going to give Purdue, but I do think it will probably be a relatively close game. Kofi Coburn and company for Illinois should give Purdue and Ivy and guys like that some definitely a true difficult task, but give me Purdue. I think they're one of the better teams definitely in college basketball, and Illinois is another team to watch out for as the season continues to go on. And then we got the fantasy here, and then we'll wrap up the podcast. Fantasy basketball, I won last week by a score of 1,470 to 836, so I moved to 12-1 on the season. And today I've got going John Morant, Donovan Mitchell, Desmond Bain, Brandon Ingram, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, John Collins, Darius Garland, Miles Bridges, and Tyrese Maxey. So those are the guys I got going today for what should be a fun day of basketball all day long. So basketball, hockey, all throughout the day, with also a nice, a good college basketball game between Purdue and Illinois should be a good game. All those games on today, and then wrapping up Monday will be the Rams-Cardinals, also wrapping up wild card weekend. Like I said, I think the Rams win that game 31-20. So I had them covering the 3.5, and I took the over on the over-under of 50 points. So that's what I got. So I got for the podcast. Definitely a packed podcast. Definitely was a busy podcast today. So enjoy your Monday. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy all the basketball. Enjoy all the hockey. Hopefully tonight is a good football game, and hopefully it's a close game, so enjoy that. And, with all that being said, that will do it. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.